Okay, let's look at another useful tool that is right next to the shape tool. And we're going to be using this tool quite often throughout this course. So it's really important for you guys to know how to work with it and how you can use it for certain purposes. So that is the pen tool, and it's right next to the shape tool. And in this lesson, we're going to see how it works and what we can do with this tool. So I'm going to make a new composition. Let's name it something. You can choose the background color if you want a different one. And this is our composition. Now I can access the pen tool. If you click on it, we have the same option as the shape tool. You can choose a fill color. Let's go for something bright. And you can choose a stroke color. And choose the thickness of that stroke. So just like the shape tool where there's nothing on my timeline and I'm not selecting a layer, that means that I'm going to be making a shape. So if you look at my cursor, there's a star next to it, and remember that a star indicates that you're going to be creating a shape. So just create points. See, I made a shape layer. And just make any shape that you want. Then once you close it, the fill and the stroke will be applied. If I click away, you can see the fill and the stroke. You can always change the stroke, maybe change the fill color, and anything else that you may need. And by the way, I'm zooming in and out using the scroll wheel on my mouse. You can use the zoom tool in the toolbar. You can also get the hand tool, hit Edge on your keyboard, or just click this to move your composition around. Right, I'm gonna hit V. So just like the shape tool, you can create shapes with the pen tool, but you're creating less traditional shapes. So this is not exactly a shape that you would be able to create with the shape tool unless you alter the points and move them around. So with the pen tool, you get to create shapes that are usually not available in the shape tool. So you can see I'm making a really random shape. And I can alter the sides by clicking on either one and maybe expanding them, making them shorter, moving the points around. And this allows me to create any shape that I want, and I have more freedom compared to the shape tool. So if you want to access the pen tool, you have to hit, let me go here, you have to hit G on your keyboard. So once I hit G, I'm on the pen tool. And if I hit V, I'm on the selection tool. So I'll hit G again. And let's say you wanted a rounded side. So right now I'm going to make a shape somewhat a square, and you can see the sides are straight, the edges are sharp. But what if I wanted my shape to have like a round part here? I can do that by just making my point, and then when I'm about to make the second point, where in between the curve would appear, I would click, hold, and then move down. So you can see I'm making a curve. If I go the opposite way, it's coming inwards. So I'm going to move it down. And then once I let go, I have a curve. Now notice these two handles. These indicates the curves. This one's for this side. And we have another one here, which means that the next point is also going to be curved. So you can see that on this point, we do not have the two handles. This indicates that my next selection is going to be sharp. So if I make one here, you can see we have a sharp edge. Another one, we have a sharp edge. But if I make the next one, click and hold it, go to either side, I have curved it from the points that I chose. Then again, we have a handle here, which means the next point is also going to be curved. So I'm going to click here, and it's not a big curve. Let's go for something here. You can see the curve is more visible. If I wanted the curve on my other point and I want to enhance it even more, I would click it, You can see we already have a curve, but I want to enhance my curve. So before letting go, I'm going to again drag it to the side. You can see we have a handle here and 2 more up here. Now if I want to make this perfect, I could go on the handle. Let me zoom in. Hit Edge to move up a little. Hit the G again. Then I'll go on this handle and move it in a way where I would have a smooth curve. I can do the same thing with these handles and work with the curve that I have created. If I shorten the handle, the curve is not going to be as intense. But if I stretch it out, you can see that we're getting a big curve. So using the handles, you can alter the shape and the curve with it. Now, what if I wanted a curve here, but I wanted the next shape to be straight, so there wouldn't be any curves? I can do that by cutting off this handle. So we would only have a curve here, and then the next point would be sharp. So hold down Alt on your keyboard, and you can see this is the normal cursor. Hold down Alt, you get this flash thing, click once, and now the curve is gone. But if I wanted to only be on one side, I can just grab this guy and bring it to the bottom without changing the curve on the other side. So, whoops, I'm going to try to put it back where it was. Now the next shape, you can see, it's sharp. Because there is no handle on this side, therefore our shape, our next stroke is not going to be curved like the one before it. Let me zoom out. So that was the basic of the pen tool. Again, just like the shape tool, since they're both in, I'm going to hit M to remove the position. Since they're both in one layer, if I wanted to move any of them, I would be moving it all together. But if I only wanted to move one of them, I can just simply double click on the shape and move it around. If I click away, I'll be moving both of these guys. Alright, so if you also open it, we have the same options we had for the shape tool, just a little more different. You can see shape 1 was this guy. So if I open this, first of all, I can change the blending options, just like we had the option for the shape tool. If we go in path, you can create keyframes for the path. If we go in stroke, we have some options for maybe dashes, waves, the stuff we went through in the shape tool. You can change the width of your stroke, which is the bright green. You can change the opacity of the stroke. If we close stroke 1, we have options for the fill. We have color, opacity, fill rule, and all of that. It's quite similar to the shape tool options, except we do not have the option for the points. Like we did with the star shape. I don't know if you guys remembered, we could add more points down here. Let's go back to the shape tool just so we can revise what we learned in a previous lesson. So here's my star. And if I open my Polystar in the Polystar shape 1, path 1, you can see I have the option for points. But I don't have that option for the shape 1, this guy. So this is one of the differences. I'm going to delete layer 2. And if you hit M on your keyboard, you're going to close all of these. There we are. Alright, so now that I have my shapes, these are just some basic shapes. Let me delete this and let's go towards more complicated approach. So here's my pen tool. You can get it by hitting G on your keyboard. And like we said, we could click and then drag to make curves along our path. And now, if we wanted to maybe change the fill on the inside, you can hold down Alt. You can see that if I go over this, you get some fill options. You can also hold down Alt and click to see what you can do. There's gradients, radial gradients, solid color. By default, it would be on solid color, but if you guys want, you can add some gradients. So I'm going to add a gradient to this. You can see that it's different. And down here in shape 1, I have gradient fill 1. If I open this up, you can change the start point, the end point, which is just the point as to where the color starts to fade into the second color. If you go in colors, hit edit gradient. You can click once on this guy and choose one color that you like. I'm going to go with this red, and then click on the other color to add another your second color. So I'm going to go for something like this. And if you wanted a color in between, you would click anywhere. I'm going to click here, get like a bright blue, and then I can stretch it out to choose the location or type it in here if you have a specific number in mind. So I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll grab the eyedropper tool to grab the same color, but make it a little darker. Alright, so you can add as many points as you want. You can see there's no limit. And if you wanted to delete those points, you can hit delete or just click and drag it down. So you can see we now have 3 stops. And we have a nice gradient. And if I wanted to switch these two, I can just grab the red here, bring the blue here. And then if I bring this guy to the left, I'm adding more red space. But if I bring it to the right, I'm giving a little space. Although we have to work with the start and end points down here. But this is just a quick way of knowing how to work with the gradient editor. Going to hit OK. Alright, so what if I wanted my red to start from the center? Then I would have to work with the points. And if I bring it to the left, you can see that it goes all the way to the end. And if I go too much, it'll switch places with the blue. I'm going to bring the gradient start point to the left because I want more of this fade effect. And the end point, you can either remove it completely or add more. Just switch around. And again, because they have stopwatches next to them, it means that I can create a motion from these gradients. So I'm going to hit the stopwatch for endpoint. Maybe move in 2 seconds in and then remove the gradients. So I'm going to do the same with the start point. Come here. And let's say we move it to the right side. So if I click away, hit the spacebar, you can see that the gradient is moving towards the direction that I told it to. So you can also change the opacity of the entire fill color. This again has a stopwatch. We can also change the colors of our gradient. So I'm going to turn this guy on. Right now in this keyframe, it's this color set. But if I move in maybe 2 seconds, I'm going to go back to edit gradient. Maybe make the red a bit darker and the blue a bit lighter, whatever you want. Then you can see, once I click away, that my colors are changing and also my gradient is fading towards the right. So it's just some quick things for you guys to know. It's really helpful. We have similar options with the stroke. Let me turn this off. Alright, and then in the stroke, and if you've noticed, we don't have a fill, instead we have a gradient fill. So if you're wondering where the fill is, it's been replaced by the gradient. So for the stroke, if I go in the beginning, maybe add a stroke width of 8 here, then 2 seconds in, I will make it maybe 80. Go back, change the color from this vibrant green into maybe this dark green. And also I'm going to start the opacity at around 26%. Bring it here to make it 100. Alright, so just a few adjustments. Once I click away, you can see the stroke is adding on, it's fading in, and the color has changed. So that's also something helpful to know. We also have some options for the path. Not really helpful for me, but essentially what it means is that you can change each of these points, and you can see like it moves upwards, like so. You can click and maybe rotate it if you want to. So it's going to rotate there, or at any point that you put the keyframes in. Alright, and then we also have this similar option with all the other layers. I'm going to hit M to close everything. Let's say I want my shape to scale in or out. I'm going to hit S on my keyboard. You have these options for transforming on any layer. It doesn't matter if it's a shape layer, a shape you made with the pen tool or the shape tool. Doesn't matter. So I'm going to go to the beginning, hit on my stopwatch, and then 2 seconds in I'll make it smaller. You can see that it's getting smaller, but we still have all of the other animations that we made on our pen tool, on our layer. And another thing that you might have noticed is that the anchor point is at a random angle. And this is causing our shape to kind of scale in a weird manner. So if you wanted to change the anchor point, one thing you could do is to grab this guy, just move the anchor point to the center or the corner, wherever you want. But again, it's not going to work out well if I wanted to maybe bring my shape from here. Let's actually do that. I'm going to turn off my scale, hit P for position. I'm going to hit V to bring this guy down. Turn on the stopwatch, come in 2 seconds, and then move it, let's say here. You can see that it's like moving while it's doing all the other animations that we asked After Effects to do. Alright, and then once it's here, I want it to scale and become smaller. So I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to make it like small. So it's going to be something like this. And whoops, the reason why it turned super small is that we didn't assign the shape another keyframe from the beginning. So I'm going to come here and then make it like a little bigger, or just leave it at 100. Once we play, it's going to be the same size, and then it's suddenly going to become smaller. Let's do that again. I'm going to come here, make it smaller. Alright, let's go back. And now it's becoming smaller. Alright, so notice how it didn't scale down from the center, but from this area. This is because we always have to move the keyframe, the anchor point of our shape for it to work. So it's going down. And if you wanted the anchor point, let's say here you wanted the anchor point to be in the middle, but then in the end, once it moves here, you can see it ends up being here. I need to create keyframes for my anchor point. So I'm going to open this guy up, go in the anchor point stopwatch, and then I'm going to turn it on. So for the first point, I want it to be in the center of my shape. And then by the end of my first scale keyframe, I'm going to drag it here. And then maybe move this around. Maybe I'll drag it to the center. It's going to be more proper. It's not going to move around so much. So if you want your shape to be scaled down from the center, you want to make sure that the anchor point, which is this thingy, let me zoom in, this guy, to be in the center, or else it's going to look weird. Alright, so I'm going to reset everything. Just hit reset. And I'm going to turn these guys off. Let's go in contents. And go in stroke. Turn everything off. Or better yet, let's just delete this and work with another shape. I'm going to hit Edge to bring my screen to the center. And now let's get into other parts of the pen tool. Alright, so what if I drew something like this? And let me go back to, I'm going to hold down, I'm going to click on the fill text. I'm going to go back to my solid fill. And I wanted to add more points. So you can see immediately that there's a plus next to my cursor and I'm adding more points. I can curve them up if I want to. Maybe make it like this. And again, I can move the handles to work with the intensity of my curve. So if you wanted to add a point, just click on the line. You can see it's a star shape. Now it's a plus. That means you're adding more points to your shape. And if you also hold down Alt, we have this add vertex point, which is essentially the same thing. And you can make it big or small, give it a curve, or hold down Alt and click it if you decided not to go with the curve. Let me make another point here. And another thing that you could do if you didn't want all of these points is to hold down Alt, click on this guy, delete vertex point. Just click on any point that you do not want. I'm going to delete everything except for these guys. Let's actually remove that. So hold down Alt, click on these guys. We have Convert Vertex Tool, Mask Feather Tool, the regular pen tool, Add Vertex Tool, Delete Vertex Tool. So the Convert Vertex Tool was the thing we already went over, which means that if I made, let me delete this guy. If I made a shape and I curved it, then I continue to make another curve. Let's make this guy curved. And at some point I didn't want this guy to be curved. Holding down Alt and clicking on this is the same thing as the convert point. So you can see once I click on it, it's no longer curved. It's the same thing here. Hold down Alt, click until you get the Convert Vertex tool, and you can just get rid of the curve. But holding down Alt and clicking on the point is the same thing, so you can use whichever path that you want. Alright, so we are going to make my shape. Do another thing for my shape. I'm going to hit G to get my pen tool. Then I'm going to hold down Alt, click to round again. So if you wanted to bring back the roundness, if I'm not holding down Alt, you can see I'm just moving these points around. But if I wanted to bring back the curves, maybe click on one of these, hold down Alt. Hold down Alt before you click. And then I can add curves to the point. We have the handles again. If I want it to be sharp, hold down Alt, click on this point. So it may be a little confusing, but just know that when you're clicking and dragging on a point, you're going to be making a curve. So when you're holding down Alt and then clicking and dragging, you're going to be adding a curve to that point. And notice how it's not touching the rest of the points because you're only currently working with that singular point. And if you just click and move the point around without holding or dragging, you're just moving that point and you're not going to be making a curve for that point. And if I just wanted to add a curve without customizing the intensity, I can just hold down Alt and then just single click on that point without dragging, because dragging, as you can see, it's allowing me to move the handles and customize the curve. These are really important for you guys to remember. And if we wanted to curve our shape, let me actually make a new one. Let's make like a weird shape, which is all curves. And again, if you hold down Alt and single click, you're going to remove the sharpness. And then I can add curves to one side. Now, if I wanted this to have more of a natural curves, so it's not this weird, I can right click, mask and shape path, Router Bezier. I guess that's how you pronounce it. And then you can see that it curved it in a more natural manner. So if I were to do this myself, let me hit Control D to duplicate. I'm going to turn off the visibility for the first layer. Go to G. And just make a shape again. This is the first shape. Let's make another one. So if I were to make my curves freestyle, like without the option that we just added, you can see that it's not going to look that natural. Let me move this guy to the side so you guys can see. Move this guy here. You can see that on the second one, this guy, it's a lot more natural and it's a lot more smooth. But the one I made, it's kind of rocky. And so if you wanted a more natural curve, you can use that option, which is just going on your shape, right click, mask and shape path. And I guess we can't use it on this guy. And you saw that we just go in here and then you hit this guy. Alright, let's delete these two. Now what if you wanted to use the pen tool and make a feathered shape? So you saw earlier that once we hit G, we have a mask feather tool. Let's get into that. I'm going to make another shape by connecting my points. I'll hit G again to get this feather icon. So if I were to use this on a regular shape, you can see it's not working. That is because it's a mask feather tool. If you remembered from the previous lessons, when we were working with the shape tool, we knew that we could use the shape tool for either making a shape or creating a mask layer. So right now this is a regular shape, and using the mask feather tool is not going to do much because this is not a mask layer. So let me show how it would work on a mask layer. I'm going to turn the visibility of this layer off. Hold down Control or Command for Mac and hit Y to get your solid option. Choose a random color. Hit OK. Now we have a solid layer. So if I hit G again to get my pen tool, you can see the cursor changes. If I click away, you can see that it's a star. If I click on the blue solid one, it's a mask option. So whatever shape I create is going to be a mask of the shape. So I can do the same thing that I've been doing with the pen tool. Let me undo that. Click and drag to make curves. And I can even use the Alt to sharpen the edges. Go in the mask and shape path, hit this guy to make a more natural curve. So now that this is a mask on my blue solid one, if I hit G again, I can use the mask feather tool. So you can see now there's like a screen next to it. If I go on the line, it's a plus. And if I drag out, you can see that I'm feathering out my edges. And this is great if you're going to be masking out part of a video where you want everything to look natural, and you can mask it out as much as you want. And yeah, it's going to be really handy when you want to get a smooth effect on your footage. So there we are masking things out. So we're going to be using the pen tool quite a lot in our lessons. Like I said, it's really handy in both animations and in videos. If you're going to edit videos on After Effects, then you can use the mask tool, which would usually be the pen tool, to take out parts of the video that you do not want at that moment. So what that means is that, let me hit Control Z to remove the feathering. I'm going to make another solid layer, so Control or Command Y. Choose another color. Let's go for pink. Hit OK. Bring this guy below blue solid 1. And I'm going to make hit G to get the pen tool. I'm going to make another mask of the pink layer. I'm going to turn the visibility for blue solid 1. Make a shape. Maybe add extra points. Right click. Use this to make a smooth curve. Then I'm going to hit V. And I can move the mask around. Alright, so now if I wanted to maybe make a mask layer on top of these guys, let's actually do something else so it's easier. Let me delete these guys actually. Gonna hit Control Y again, make my shape, bring this guy here. And I'm going to make another solid, Control Y, maybe add like a blue, and bring this below. Alright, so if I make a mask layer on my pink solid, you can see the difference. I'm going to get my pen tool, make a random shape, right click. If I wanted to make it smooth, I can do that. So now you can see we only have this part of the pink solid available. If I open this guy up, open mask, mask 1, we have something for mask path. So I'm going to come from the beginning, turn on the stopwatch, come in maybe 2 seconds. Then I'm going to go in the shape guy, move it to the right maybe. I come all the way a little bit to the right. And you can see it expands. And now you can see that my mask is expanding. But because I moved my solid over here, remember that I brought my solid a bit to the right and the actual layer finishes here. So that is why when we expand our shape, there's nothing over here because the original solid ends here. So that's the way the mask works. You're not creating a shape, but you're just taking everything out except for the shape that you created. You can also expand things. So I'm going to turn on mask expansion by 2 seconds. Maybe I'll make it bigger. And again, you can see it cuts off here because our original shape is on this side, as in it ends here. Have the same option for feathering. Turn on feathering, and then come here. Maybe add a few pixels of feathering. There we are. And we can also work with the opacity, so like it fades away as it reaches towards the right. So this is a simple animation with the mask. And you can see it slowly fades away because we changed the opacity. And there we are. So I'm going to see here, we have some options for the mask itself. So if I move the position of my mask and then move forward, you can see that it fades away. But that's if you want it to fade in the first place. And that is how the pen tool works. It's really simple. But again, once we get into the tutorials by the end of this course, it's going to be a lot easier to understand once you use it to make certain styles of videos and animations. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one.